Hello again, and welcome to Playthrough Board Games. I'm still going through some of my backlog of games from MaceCon, and this is one of the games I wanted to share with you. It's called In the City Origins, and its expansion, In the City Harbor. This game was a game I tested at MaceCon, and the developer was there, Duncan Davis. The game design to me was really nice, and while the artwork was not quite as good as I might have wanted it to be, he shared with me that it was sort of open source, so you pay a licensing fee and you can have access to any of the artwork on this one particular website. It allows you to develop a game much cheaper than if you had to go out and hire an artist and design all your cards. And this game has a large number of cards that you can use. I've set up the game here, but I wanted to point out this is just a portion of the cards available in the game. There's still a large number of cards from what are called different tiers that you can use in the game, and it gives you a lot of variety. The purpose of In the City Origins is to become the king of the city. The current king has died, and you're trying to gain influence from all the people in the city, and use that influence to become the person who rules. I'll show you some of the cards so you can see how this is set up. Here's an example of a card from In the City Origins. In this case, this card has a name, Lambs of the False God, which you can read at the top of the card. It has a tier, Tier 1. You can also see the tier on the back of the card. There are symbols on the left-hand side that tell you some information about the card. The top symbol is how much the card costs in influence for you to purchase. And influence is listed on an influence tracker that you have that comes with the game. Each player will have one of these, and you gain a certain amount of influence depending on what type of people you've convinced to join your side. Also note that there's a special ability mentioned on this card. Whenever you use a sacrifice ability, gain +2 influence this turn. Each card in the deck generally has some sort of ability you can use. And when you recruit a card, which you have to pay this recruitment cost here, the shield symbol, you also gain a permanent influence on your influence tracker that you can use to buy more expensive cards later on. Finally, some cards have a victory point total at the bottom. That victory point total will decide who will reign as king. Before playing the game, one of the most important aspects is picking a leader. Leaders have a large influence on the way you play the game. And to begin with, a player draws 3 cards from the leadership deck, which there are a large number of leaders in the game. Again, fairly hefty pile. And the player will look through the leaders and pick one that might be the most useful for him or the style of play he wants to use for that turn. Let me go through a couple of these just so you can see what some of the choices are like. Here's Connoisseur of the Many. He can, once per turn, recruit any tier 0 creature in the city square for free. Notice also that the Connoisseur of the Many only has 1 influence at the beginning of the game. That's a fairly low influence compared to most of the other leaders in the deck. Here's a leader called Bishop of the Far Reach. You may recruit from any row in the city square, not just the bottom. And this gives you an advantage over some of the other players who have to limit their recruitment to the bottom row. And I'll show you how the rows are set up in a minute. Finally, here's one Rainbow Praetor, I think is how you say that. She gets 3 recruitment points to begin with. And if she enlists a gold, white, or purple creature, notice again that creatures have different colors. Here's a purple and a red one. She gains a temporary +3 influence on her next turn. If she enlists a blue, red, or green creature, she can switch 2 cards in the city square next turn. So each of these leaders have advantages and disadvantages. And we're going to begin by picking 1 leader we're going to set this up as a 2-player game, and we're going to pick 1 leader for each of the players. And after we've done that, I'll show them to you, and we'll begin setting up the rest of the game. And so we've made our selections. We picked 2 with fairly different advantages from each other. Rainbow Praetor, who I read to you, can manipulate the board a bit and also gains additional money whenever she enlists a particular type of creature, gold, white, or purple. And then the Exquisite Torturer. Whenever you destroy an opponent's creature, you may steal it instead. And that's pretty neat if we can find a way for him to destroy our opponent's creatures. Let me show you the setup. The setup's fairly simple. You have tier 0 cards that you include on the left-hand side of the board of the playing area. You also have these mercenaries that go over on the right-hand side, and they won't come out until later in the game. Note that mercenaries will enter the square when the first tier 2 cards are revealed. So they begin coming into the square fairly early in the game. They cost 5 recruitment and they give you 3 gold, but they have no victory points. Okay, let's go ahead and show you, to set up each of the other decks, you have different tiers of creatures. And I've shown you some of the decks, but there's a tier 1 deck, a tier 2 deck, and a tier 3 deck. You start by putting 2 tier 3 cards on the bottom of the deck. Then you put 4 tier 2 cards on top of those, and 3 tier 1 cards on the top of those. And that's how you play the basic game. The more advanced game can be scaled to a certain number of players. You can have up to 5, though I think it's supposed to be pretty slow if you get up to 5 players total. The game seems to be more designed for around 3 players, though I've played it as a 2-player game and it plays fairly well. Let's go ahead and reveal the creatures that we can recruit. This is sort of like a waterfall style game. So the cards come out and are laid like so. 2 cards per deck. And I think I'm laying them the correct way. Note also that I am including the expansion in this in the city harbor. And in the city harbor allows you to use ships in the game. And we'll look at those in a minute. But let's go ahead and lay out all the remaining cards first. Tier 1 cards tend to cost a little bit less to recruit, so you can start building up your set of creatures fairly quickly. I've now laid out all the cards, and I apologize that my screen is not quite large enough for you to see everything that's available. I did want to focus for a minute on the ship cards that were included in the first expansion for the game. This was successfully funded through Kickstarter a number of months ago. But here's an example. This guy's called Blockade Runner. You can see they're fairly expensive. 14 influence to get this. You get 1 victory point for recruiting the ship. But when you enlist, that means when he becomes a member of your team, you get to steal an opponent's creature with this influence equal or less than the number of ships in your faction. So they have some new mechanics that are fun to test out. Let's begin also by setting up our influence tracker. And both our Exquisite Torturer and our Rainbow Praetor had 3 influence to begin. Finally, we need to decide who goes first. Whoever goes first gets the advantage of playing first, but whoever goes second gets 1 additional temporary influence. So let's roll. I'll roll for the Exquisite Torturer first. He rolled a 3, and then the Rainbow Praetor rolled a 9. She will be playing first. So we will put the bonus money on the Exquisite Torturer. And let me show you how you keep track of this. The influence tracker comes with these nice little gems, so you can set the gem on top of the amount of influence that you currently have, and this will increase throughout the game. And if you get a temporary influence bonus or a negative temporary bonus influence, you can put it down at the bottom. We have multiple of these. You can put the additionals at the bottom. So let's begin our turn by allowing the Rainbow Praetor to recruit someone. We'll begin the game by doing something that is specific to the harbor expansion, and that's taking a ship out of the ship pool of cards and allowing a second one to come out. Either player can do that at the beginning or end of either player's turn, but you can only move ships once per turn. that wasn't very helpful because the ships still have such large recruitment values. The Rainbow Praetor has set her sights on this Aristocrat's Heir. This card costs 2 recruitment. Remember, she has 3. You don't lose recruitment when you recruit a card, so we don't have to worry about our recruitment dropping down. This aristocrat immediately adds 1 to her influence tracker, so she's now at 4. Then, if we have a creature that's worth 3 or more victory points, our influence goes up 2 more. So this gives us 1 victory point. Our influence tracker has increased by 1, and we get the Rainbow Praetor's special ability, which is gain +3 temporary recruitment next turn. So we'll take a second gem and place it on our temporary bonus area. And we're not building a deck, we're building a group. So the card we set our card directly beside our Rainbow Praetor. And that's it for her turn. We scoot down the captain of the guard and bring out the next recruit. And it is now the Exquisite Torturer's turn. The Exquisite Torturer is now recruiting someone to his team. We're going to begin by recruiting this Priest of Life, which is an interesting conundrum for this particular leader card. This guy costs 4 influence. We have 3+1 this turn. He gives us 2 victory points, and we increase our total influence by 2 for the rest of the game, as long as he is part of our team. So we move from a total influence of 3 to 5. Our temporary influence goes away, and we move the creatures down and continue the game. Our Rainbow Praetor has looked at the cards. She begins by removing a ship and allowing another one to come out. We're getting closer to having ships that we can actually recruit. And she is going to recruit the Captain of the Guard here. This creature, this particular card, will allow us to gain additional influence if we recruit other red creatures in our faction. So her temporary bonus goes away. She gains 2 more influence that she can use next turn, and she can gain more on later turns. She also can switch 2 cards in the city next turn. So there is a spot on the influence tracker where you can put a gem on top of switch on next turn, which she's done. And let's move on to the Exquisite Torturer. The Exquisite Torturer is feeling a little bit unhappy with the way things are going influence-wise, so he is going to recruit the Veteran Buccaneer. When you enlist this card, each opponent with the most influence gets -2 on their next turn. We only have 1 opponent, so her influence goes down to next turn. And this Veteran Buccaneer raises our influence by 2, so we're now at 7. And we turned over our Tier 2 card last time, and I forgot to go ahead and bring out the Mercenary Thugs. So as I mentioned, the Mercenary Thugs should come out this turn, which they have now come out. And we have recruited the Veteran Bodyguard. We have to move another Tier 2 card into the fray. And we're now switched to the Rainbow Praetor, who will continue her turn. And our Rainbow Praetor is going to begin the turn by getting rid of the first front ship in the city, and then is going to use, she actually can't use her influence to recruit the next ship. That's unfortunate. She will instead recruit the Lost Girls. Only costs 2 influence. It gives 2 influence, which is nice. That'll bump her up to 8. But she also gets the temporary +3 because of her special enlistment power. So that puts her at 8 total. Her temporary -2 goes away. She didn't use her switch power because she didn't feel the need at this particular time. And she will get +3 next turn. So we move on to the Exquisite Torturer, who is at 7 influence. And he already knows who he wants to recruit, and that is the Mercenary Watercraft. This is the first ship that they've recruited. It's 5, which I think he will do, and he will gain 3 influence. The Rainbow Praetor might have been able to move that ship out so that he could not recruit it, but we did not do that. So play continues on. The Rainbow Praetor is on her turn. She now has a total of 11 influence that she can use this turn. And since the Rainbow Praetor has a total of 11 influence, she's going to recruit this Tier 2 creature, Fearsome's Bodyguard. One of the reasons she's going to do this is she will gain +2 for her Aristocrat's Heir by doing this. This raises her total influence up by 5, so she goes from 8 to 13. Her temporary influence goes away, but next turn she gets to switch some cards in the city if she chooses to. We move back to the Exquisite Torturer, who now has a total influence of 10, and so can recruit something a little larger. He's going to begin by getting rid of the Pirate Hopper and moving another ship down. And the Exquisite Torturer is going to do something that he hasn't tried to do before, and that's he's going to use his power. Whenever you destroy an opponent's creature, you may steal it instead. And he'll begin doing this by recruiting the Naval Executioner. When you enlist, you may sacrifice a ship to destroy an opponent's creature of the same tier. He sacrifices his ship that's worth 3 gold, 3 influence, and instead pulls the Captain of the Guard over to his side. Captain of the Guard would normally be destroyed, but with his special power he can take control of it. He loses 1 influence by doing this. Actually, he loses none because he gained 1 from the Naval Executioner. But the Rainbow Praetor ends up losing 2. So she's now down to 11. We bring out another ship, and the Rainbow Praetor's power has been knocked down a little bit. Now it's her turn to recruit. She has 11 possible recruitment points. And she is going to recruit something that gives her some more recruitment power, we're hoping. She'll begin by recruiting the Parish Acolyte, who gives each opponent -1 on their next turn. We'll put that on the Executioner's card, and we'll move on to his turn. She is now at 13 influence. So the Executioner is at 9 total influence. By the way, the game ends when we clear out any 2 decks in the city. Each person has to have the same number of turns. So if the game were to they were to clear out 2 decks on the Executioner's turn, the game would be over. If it happens on the Praetor's turn, the game would continue until the Executioner gets 1 additional turn. So he has 9 this turn, and he's going to do something similar. Take the Smalls Pawnbroker, which gives him a chance to take away -2 on the Praetor's turn. Now the Praetor, because she recruited a white creature last turn, she got a +3 bonus. So now her bonus is going to go down to +1. So she's at 14, and she is going to recruit something fairly large. She's actually going to recruit this Lamb Herder. The Lamb Herder is an interesting creature. Each turn you put a counter on it, and for each counter on the creature, she gets +1 victory points. And it can't be destroyed, stolen, or taken away. So we'll begin. I believe she can begin by saying, I'm putting a counter on it now, since it's a turn. But let me check on that. No, she may not use a turn command this at the end of her turn. It has to happen before you recruit. So we move down this creature, and we continue on to the Exquisite Torturer's turn. Note that the Lamb Herder is -2 influence, so her influence moves down 2, but since this was a white creature, she gets +3 temporary influence next turn. The Exquisite Torturer is up again, and he has 10 total influence, so he can begin recruiting something fairly large as well. but there's nothing available. So he is going to take this, Saski's Saboteur. You may destroy an opponent's Tier 1 or Tier 2 cards. If you do, you must give that player one of your Tier 1 or Tier 2 cards. So he will begin by destroying the Fearsome Bodyguard. Now that he's destroyed the Fearsome Bodyguard, he can take it into his hand rather than destroy it, and he's going to give the Praetor something with not quite as much power. And that would be the Naval Executioner, which the enlist effect doesn't take place when you give a character a card. Let me recalculate their influence now. And so after switching the cards, the Executioner's influence is at 15, while the Praetor's influence is now down to 9 with her temporary bonus 3. So she's going to be able to recruit a 12 creature this turn. And she'll begin by looking to see what she can do. She has a total of 12 influence. The new green card that just popped up is pretty good. It's called Cult Leader. When she enlists, she can recruit every Tier 0 creature in the city. So she'll do that, and she'll begin by flipping the last card in this deck. She takes the Man of War, which gives her an extra influence, and the Man of Tricks, which she can sacrifice to switch any 2 creatures in the city. And she has recruited both a gold. In this case, I think since she's enlisted a gold creature, she gets +3/+3, and she's enlisted, so that's a total of 6. And she's enlisted a green creature, which allows her to switch cards on her next turn. Her influence also goes up 2, so she's now at 11. And we continue on. Tier 0 creatures come out, and it is the Exquisite Torturer's turn. He has 15 total influence. He is going to recruit the Traveling Monk, shown here. Costs 15 influence, and when he enlists, he can recruit any creature in the city square worth 6 or less. And for 6 or less, he's going to recruit a pair of mercenaries to give him more influence. And that puts him up 4 more to 19 total influence. Note that I didn't mention it, but I did put a counter on the Lamb Herder last turn. So she has +1 victory points right now. It's now her turn again. We'll put a second one on, the Praetor's Lamb Herder, and she will begin her recruitment. She has a total of 11 plus 6, 17 influence, and she can switch a card. She's going to recruit the Mercenary Slayers. When you enlist this creature, you destroy an opponent's Tier 2 gold creature. The only Tier 2 gold creature he has are the Mercenary Thugs, so this gets destroyed and put into a separate pile. The Mercenary Slavers go to the Rainbow Praetor, who increases her influence by 1 up to 12. The Exquisite Torturer loses 3 influence points, so he's now down to 16, and we move up this row of cards. So with 16 influence, the Exquisite Torturer needs to decide what he's going to do. And he's going to recruit the Priest of Time. Choose an opponent. That player may only recruit cards with 0 influence for their next recruitment. So that's fairly nice. That delays her turn. This raises his influence up by 2, and we continue on. We'll go ahead and get rid of one of the ships just for the fun of it. We are almost finished with this game. If we can get rid of the cards in these 2 columns, the game ends. Rainbow Praetor is going to go ahead and put another token on the Lamb Herder, but she cannot recruit anything from anywhere but a 0 influence. Okay, she'll just recruit the Man of Tricks, since she can't recruit anything else. That gives her, she's able to sacrifice a creature to switch 2 creatures in the square. That was a gold, so she gains 3 influence next turn. And the Executioner begins again. He is at 18 total influence. And he's going to recruit the Swift Hull Breachers. This allows him to destroy 2 cards that share a color in the city square. So this is the city square, and he wants the game to end because he feels like he's doing well, even though we don't have the mental capacity to add up all the points right now. He's going to begin by destroying the King's Executioner, which is in this column that's almost out of cards. He's going to destroy the Inspirational Artist. The Rainbow Praetor this turn has 15, and she can recruit whoever she wants. And she also has this Man of Tricks that allows her to switch cards. So with 15 influence, is there someone she wants to get in the back row? The answer right now appears to be no, but she does want to gain some additional victory points, so she's going to recruit the Mystic Ambassadors here. Diplomatic immunity, they can't be destroyed, and they give 2 influence and 2 victory points. And her influence just popped up again because her Lamb Herder is now worth more than 3 victory points. So she's now at 16. And since that was a blue creature, next turn she gets to switch some creatures. And we move on to the Executioner. The Executioner has a total of 20, so he can finish up this section here. So he will do that. It's 20. When he enlists, we choose 2 columns. Those columns cannot be affected or recruited from until the start of your next turn. This column is finished. He's going to make it where these 2 columns can't be recruited from next turn. So we'll put just 2 dice there, so we know. The Rainbow Praetor is up. She has total influence of 16 this turn. She can only recruit then really from these 2 columns over here. And she's going to recruit this card called Fishing Boats. He has diplomatic immunity, so he can't be destroyed. If we enlist a ship, we put a counter on fishing boats, and we gain +1 influence for each counter. So put this here. No influence this turn, but we have recruited a gold creature, which gives us +3 temporary. We continue on with our Exquisite Torturer. He has 21 influence, so if he can recruit anyone, it would be really nice. 21 isn't quite enough for what he needs to do, but he is going to pick up the Storyteller. When we enlist, we gain +1 next recruitment for each player in the game. So he moves up 2 influence, and he gains a temporary bonus of +1. Continuing on to the Rainbow Praetor. She has a total of 19 influence this turn, and she wants to keep recruiting as large as she possibly can. She's going to begin by sacrificing the Man of Tricks to switch any 2 cards in the city square. And she is going to switch Biggs the Death Sergeant, because she can tell he's about to be recruited, with Small's Jester. And that buys her a little more time. She still has 19 she can use to recruit with. She will recruit, if she recruits a white or a purple, she gains +3 influence next turn. She's actually going to recruit another mercenary thug. That gives her +3, temporary bonus, and +3 overall. So she's now at 19 +3, a possible of 22. The Exquisite Torturer is annoyed. He still wants to try to get Biggs, but he's going to begin by taking the Small's Jester, which is only 2. The Secret Benefactor moves down, and we only have 1 possible card left in the game. When this card is recruited, that's potentially the end of the game. And that's what the Rainbow Praetor is going to do. Still, when we enlist, we steal an opponent's Tier 2 creature and give it to a player with the least influence. Right now, she has a total influence of 19, 20, 21, 22. He has an influence of 23. So she is the player with the least influence of the group. so she can steal an opponent's tier 2 creature, which she wants to steal one that will give her a large bonus in the end, especially right now at this stage of the game. So she is going to steal back her fearsome bodyguard, who gives 3 victory points. The Exquisite Torturer gets one more turn. He has now 20 influence total, and he's going to pick the card that gives him the most influence if he can. And he will pick the Trickster Trainer, which gives 2 more victory points. And that completes the game. Let's tally up victory points and see who came out the winner for this game. Well, it ended up not even being a competition. Rainbow Praetor had 24 victory points, while the Exquisite Torturer ended up with 13. I think one of the problems with the Exquisite Torturer's plan is that he didn't recruit as well for victory point bearing creatures. Also, the Lamb Herder had 5 victory points on him at the end of the turn, which is quite a large number. Otherwise, the numbers would have been a bit closer. Anyway, that shows you the general play of the game, and I feel, again, that this game plays fairly quickly. A person can learn it fairly quickly, and there is a lot of depth to the type of cards that a person has access to when playing the game. If you're interested in this game, it's available from Duncan Davis. Here's his business card, which he shared with me, and you can use this as like a boss monster card. Note that this leader starts with 99 total recruitment points. And Duncan mentioned to me that he's actually won a couple of times when he's allowed people to begin the game with this leader. His website is shown here, sherwoodgames.com, along with an email address. Thanks for watching, and we will talk with you soon.